Holiday chaos alert. The funniest 911 calls don't come from criminals. They come from kids home alone with snacks, imagination, and terrible judgment. Gingerbread hostage situations, Roomba reindeer strikes, microwave snowmen. Yes, really. If you've ever caused holiday chaos yourself, hit like, share this with your most unhinged cousin, and drop your favorite number. We bet you won't make it to 49 without yelling, "No way!" 1. A 12-year-old boy home alone during the holidays panicked when the family elf shifted positions and gave a slow, suspicious wink. His friends insisted it was alive, which made everyone scream. He called 911 and told the dispatcher the elf might be planning something. The dispatcher paused, then asked if the elf had any weapons, which made the kids yell louder. The dispatcher tried not to laugh, but still sent an officer for a wellness check. When the officer arrived, the elf had moved again, which made the kids declare the investigation official. 2. A 10-year-old girl staying home alone microwaved a tiny snowman to see if it melted faster. The snowman exploded into pine-scented fog that rolled across the kitchen like winter smoke. Her cousins shouted that the house was vanishing. She called 911 and explained the snowman had turned into gas. The dispatcher asked if anyone was dizzy, which made the youngest cousin fall over dramatically. The dispatcher sighed and sent firefighters just in case. When they arrived, the fog cleared, and one firefighter said this was the freshest smelling emergency he had ever seen. 3. A pair of siblings home alone heard clanking in the basement after the older sister claimed she saw Krampus lurking there. Their friends dared each other to open the basement door, but no one moved. They called 911 and told the dispatcher Krampus was preparing an attack. The dispatcher asked if Krampus had made verbal threats, which made the kids scream again. An officer arrived expecting raccoons but found the furnace shaking loudly. The kids insisted Krampus escape through the vents, which made the officer rub his face and file it under holiday confusion. 4. Two brothers home alone watched the Christmas tree tip over and land on the family dog, who crawled out unharmed but extremely offended. The kids panicked and called 911 to report an aggressive tree. The dispatcher asked if the tree was still hostile, which made them back away slowly. The younger brother yelled that the tree was leaning like it wanted revenge. An officer arrived and lifted the tree upright. The dog barked like a witness giving testimony. The officer told the kids this was not the strangest holiday assault report he had ever handled. 5. A girl home alone baked cookies for Santa, but accidentally used her dad's special brownie mix. Her friends tasted them and started acting overly dramatic, which convinced her something serious had happened. She called 911 and explained Santa's cookies were compromised. The dispatcher paused and asked if Santa was already en route, which made the kids panic more. Paramedics arrived and found everyone fine except unusually giggly. One paramedic joked Santa would appreciate the upgrade. The girl begged them not to arrest her for cookie tampering, and they reassured her she was safe. 6. Two cousins home alone noticed baby Jesus missing from the nativity set. Their younger brother claimed the cat adopted him and took custody. They called 911 to report a holy kidnapping. The dispatcher asked if the suspect was armed, which made the kids gasp because the cat had claws. An officer found baby Jesus in the cat bed, surrounded by toys. The officer returned the figurine and declared the custody dispute solved. The kids demanded official paperwork. The cat walked away, refusing to provide any statement on the matter. 7. A group of kids home alone asked Alexa to call Santa, but Alexa misheard and dialed 911 instead. The kids panicked and told the dispatcher this was a serious holiday communication emergency. The dispatcher asked what the actual problem was, and they admitted they only needed Santa's schedule. The dispatcher said Santa information was classified and recommended writing a letter. The kids apologized loudly. The dispatcher canceled the call and mentioned this was her third Santa hotline mix-up of the week. 8. A boy home alone with his younger brother attempted to test Santa's entry route by gluing himself to the chimney flue. When the glue hardened, the younger brother panicked and called 911. The dispatcher asked how stuck he was, and the brother yelled completely. Firefighters arrived and carefully freed the boy, who insisted this was important scientific research. One firefighter said Santa used doors during emergencies. The boy nodded like he had learned a national secret. The chimney was declared unsafe for any further experiments. 9. A group of kids home alone strapped antlers onto the Roomba and let the cat ride it like a sleigh. The Roomba crashed into the fireplace and wedged itself with the cat trapped on top. The kids called 911 and reported a reindeer accident. The dispatcher asked if the reindeer was conscious, which made the kids reassure her the cat was awake but angry. Firefighters arrived and freed the cat, who walked away dramatically. The kids promised to retire their reindeer technology until further notice. 10. Two neighbors' kids home alone reenacted a Home Alone scene by pouring tar on the driveway. Overnight, it froze into a sticky trap, and a neighbor stepped into it and got stuck. The kids called 911 and explained it was a movie reenactment gone wrong. The dispatcher asked if they had set any other traps, which made the kids confess about the marbles. Firefighters arrived and rescued the neighbor, who muttered something about holiday hazards. The kids promised to limit future reenactments to indoor scenes. 11. A daring 12-year-old home alone accepted a cousin's dare to lick a frozen metal pole in the yard. His tongue stuck instantly, which made his cousin scream and run in circles. They called 911 and the boy tried to talk, but only muffled sounds came out. The dispatcher asked if he was speaking through an object, which made the cousin shout he was attached to it. Firefighters arrived and gently used warm water to free him. One firefighter said this was the classic holiday emergency starter pack, which made the cousin faint dramatically. 12. A group of kids home alone dressed the family dog as an elf using homemade felt ears in a tiny green costume. The dog escaped through the dog door and began leading neighborhood dogs like a holiday parade gone wrong. The kids called 911 and reported an elf rebellion. The dispatcher asked who was in charge of the rebellion, which made the kids shout the dog's name. An officer arrived and found 5 dogs marching together. He returned the elf leader, who looked very proud. The kids promised to stop creating unofficial holiday workforces. 13. Two siblings home alone attempted to charge a toy sleigh using their dad's Tesla charger. When sparks flew and the garage filled with a burnt cinnamon smell, the kids panicked and called 911. The dispatcher asked if the vehicle involved was real, which made the kids insist it was Santa's backup transportation. Firefighters arrived and unplugged the charger while shaking their heads. One firefighter said this was the first sleigh malfunction of the season. The siblings promised to use normal batteries from now on and declared the experiment retired. 14. A group of cousins, home alone, decided to conduct a structural inspection of a gingerbread house. The roof collapsed instantly and sent candy pieces sliding across the table. They called 911 to report a crumb avalanche. The dispatcher asked if anyone was buried, which made the youngest cousin raise his hand, even though he was sitting in the open. An officer arrived and said this was not technically an emergency, but definitely impressive destruction. The cousins took pictures for evidence and promised to rebuild stronger. The officer told them to keep the candy out of official reports. 15. Two sisters home alone held a mock trial after believing the elf on the shelf had snitched on them for sneaking extra marshmallows. They tied the elf to a chair and argued whether he deserved jail time. They called 911 to ask if arresting an elf was legal. The dispatcher asked if the elf resisted arrest, which made the girls scream he was suspiciously quiet. An officer stopped by to check and assured them elves had diplomatic immunity. The sisters released the elf and apologized. The elf remained motionless, which made everyone suspicious again. 16. Two kids home alone lit the menorah and the Yule log at the same time without thinking about the smoke. The alarm started singing its own version of Jingle Bells, which made both kids panic. They called 911 and explained the alarm was possessed. The dispatcher asked if there was visible smoke, which made them yell that everything was smoky. Firefighters arrived and aired out the house. One firefighter told them harmony between holiday traditions should not require backup. The kids nodded and promised to light one thing at a time. 17. A boy home alone watched the inflatable Santa in the yard blow away during strong wind. It tangled in power lines and waved like it was surrendering to the sky. The boy called 911 and reported Santa had been captured. The dispatcher asked if Santa was injured, which made the boy insist Santa looked distressed. Utility workers and firefighters arrived and carefully removed the inflatable. One firefighter told the boy Santa was safe and ready for duty. The boy saluted like he had just completed an important mission. 18. Three kids home alone built a naughty list tribunal in the living room. They sentenced one brother to 12 years for stealing a cookie. When he refused to accept the punishment, they called 911 to request official backup. The dispatcher asked if this was a real legal matter, which made the kids insist they were enforcing holiday law. An officer arrived and mediated the cookie dispute. He reduced the sentence to time served and declared the court dismissed. The kids thanked him for supporting justice. The brothers celebrated freedom by eating another cookie. 19. A group of kids home alone made hot cocoa that boiled over and created a sticky moat around the couch. They called 911 and reported that the cocoa had turned evil. The dispatcher asked if the couch was trapped, which made the kids yell that it was surrounded. Firefighters arrived and carefully cleaned the spill. One firefighter joked the cocoa had attempted a takeover. The kids promised to use smaller mugs next time. The couch survived without permanent damage, which the kids considered a heroic victory. 20. A boy home alone believed the Christmas ham winked at him from the counter. He screamed, which made his younger cousin scream even louder. They called 911 and explained the ham was alive. The dispatcher asked if the ham had moved, which made the boy insist it had shown signs of attitude. An officer arrived and inspected the ham. It remained motionless but suspiciously shiny. The officer assured them the ham was not plotting anything. The kids demanded precautions and the officer suggested covering it with foil until an adult returned. 21. A boy home alone decided to track Santa using his dad's phone and a random app he found online. The app placed Santa in a Walmart parking lot in Des Moines, which made the boy panic and assume Santa was stranded. He called 911 and explained Santa needed roadside assistance. The dispatcher asked if Santa had contacted him directly, which made the boy insist he was interpreting the map. An officer checked the neighborhood just in case. The boy later admitted he might have been tracking a delivery truck. The dispatcher marked the call as enthusiastic but unnecessary. 22. A small group of kids home alone panicked when the robotic vacuum swallowed the baby Jesus figurine from the nativity set. They called 911 and reported a technological kidnapping. The dispatcher asked if the victim was responsive, which made the kids shout it was plastic. Firefighters arrived and flipped the vacuum over. The figurine was stuck in the brush like it had been on a wild ride. One firefighter said this was the safest rescue of his shift. The kids cheered and declared baby Jesus returned from the machine world. 23. A young boy home alone hid inside a large present box to surprise his mom later. He forgot to make air holes and passed out for a moment, which made his sister panic. She called 911 and explained her brother had become part of a gift. The dispatcher asked if he was breathing, which made her yell that she hoped so. Firefighters arrived and opened the box to find the boy dazed but unharmed. One firefighter joked he was definitely not returning to the store. The kids promised to avoid all future gift disguises. 24. A girl home alone insisted she had married the snowman in the backyard during a pretend ceremony. When the snowman began to melt, she demanded a divorce and hot chocolate alimony. Her cousins called 911 and reported a marital dispute. The dispatcher asked if both parties agreed to separate, which made the kids say the snowman was losing structural integrity. An officer arrived and confirmed the snowman was melting quickly. He declared the marriage dissolved by natural causes. The girl requested custody of the scarf, and the officer approved the settlement. 25. A group of kids home alone used a drone to drop candy canes onto the neighbor's roof as a holiday surprise. One candy cane went through the skylight and made the kids scream. They called 911 and explained they had created accidental peppermint hail. The dispatcher asked if anyone was injured, which made the kids insist only dignity was harmed. An officer checked the neighbor's house and found no serious damage. He reminded the kids that airstrikes were not appropriate holiday behavior. They nodded and grounded the drone indefinitely. 26. A group of cousins home alone created a Santa hotline using an old tablet. They accidentally forwarded every call to 911 for 3 hours. When they finally realized the mistake, they panicked and called to apologize. The dispatcher asked how many calls had gone through, which made the kids say too many. An officer stopped by to ensure everything was safe. The kids promised never to create unauthorized holiday call centers again. The dispatcher added this incident to the growing list of seasonal confusion. 27. Two siblings home alone believed mistletoe was government surveillance after their cousin told them a ridiculous story. They shot it down using a Nerf crossbow and then called 911 to report they had disabled a spy device. The dispatcher asked who told them mistletoe was classified, which made the kids blame their cousin immediately. An officer arrived and explained mistletoe was harmless decoration. The kids apologized and surrendered the Nerf weapon for the moment. The officer asked them to limit future counterintelligence operations. 28. A boy home alone tried to defrost a glowing Rudolph nose bulb with a hairdryer. The bulb overheated and flashed like a disco light, which made the kids run in circles. They called 911 and reported Rudolph was malfunctioning. The dispatcher asked if sparks were visible, which made the kids scream maybe. Firefighters arrived and unplugged the decoration safely. One firefighter said Rudolph had entered party mode instead of flight mode. The kids promised to stop conducting electrical experiments without supervision. 29. A group of kids home alone staged a reindeer strike using stuffed animals lined across the driveway. A neighbor saw the blockade and called 911. When officers arrived, the kids tried to negotiate on behalf of the reindeer union. The dispatcher, listening through radio, asked what their demands were, which made the kids shout they needed more cookies. Officers removed the stuffed animals and told the kids the strike was officially over. The kids promised to settle future disputes without driveway protests. 30. A girl home alone believed her eggnog had suspicious levels of cheer after her cousin told her it tasted too festive. She panicked and called 911 to request a toxicology elf. The dispatcher asked if anyone felt dizzy, which made the youngest cousin pretend to faint. Paramedics arrived and tasted a sample to confirm it was normal eggnog. One paramedic told the kids the only danger was running out. The girl felt relieved and promised not to report beverages again. 31. A group of kids home alone screamed when the gingerbread man they had baked earlier disappeared from the cooling rack. They followed crumbs into the pantry and found him broken, but positioned like he had eaten other cookies. They called 911 and reported an edible fugitive. The dispatcher asked if the suspect was still on scene, which made the kids shout yes, but in pieces. An officer arrived and declared the cookie officially recovered. The kids insisted the crime scene be photographed. The officer told them this was the tastiest investigation he had handled. 32. Two brothers home alone attempted to test Santa's magic by jumping off the roof with a trash bag parachute. One brother floated badly and crashed into the inflatable snowman. The other panicked and called 911, yelling that airborne training had failed. The dispatcher asked if anyone could still walk, which made the bruised brother yell kind of. Firefighters arrived and helped him down safely. One firefighter said Santa never used trash bags for flight. The boys admitted they had learned this lesson the painful way and promised not to pursue aviation again. 33. A group of cousins home alone built a North Pole embassy in the garage using cardboard boxes and a cooler as the official desk. They declared independence and requested diplomatic status through a 911 call. The dispatcher asked what country they represented, which made the kids shout the North Pole Republic. An officer arrived and played along for a moment before encouraging them to revoke independence. The kids accepted milk as a peace treaty. The embassy was dismantled peacefully. The officer said it was the easiest international negotiation of his career. 34. Two siblings home alone tried summoning Santa using their TV remote. When the garage door opened instead, they screamed believing Santa had arrived early and stolen their dad's truck. They called 911 and reported a sleigh theft. The dispatcher asked if they had video evidence, which made them describe the garage moving by itself. Officers arrived and found the truck perfectly safe. The kids admitted they had pressed the wrong button. One officer recommended saving summoning attempts for Christmas Eve. The kids agreed and locked the remote away. 35. A girl home alone convinced herself the Christmas lights were spying for the Grinch after her cousin claimed they blinked suspiciously. She cut every strand with safety scissors and called 911 to report a sabotage victory. The dispatcher asked if the lights had been threatening her, which made the girl insist they had a suspicious rhythm. An officer arrived and explained blinking lights were normal. The girl apologized and promised not to perform counter operations again. The officer suggested next time unplugging them instead of executing them. 36. A group of kids home alone attempted to train their cat to pull a small wagon in preparation for a reindeer shortage. The cat pulled it 3 feet, then toppled over dramatically. The kids called 911 believing the cat had emotional damage. The dispatcher asked if the cat was injured, which made the kids say physically, no, emotionally, yes. A paramedic team arrived and checked the unimpressed cat. One paramedic said the cat simply retired from holiday labor. The kids offered the cat a peace treaty of tuna, which was accepted immediately. 37. Two brothers home alone screamed when they found the snowman they built earlier, appearing to have grown arms. They called 911 and reported a winter creature uprising. The dispatcher asked if the arms were moving, which made the kids insist they had seen motion. An officer arrived and discovered their dad had secretly added branches as a joke before leaving. The boys felt both relieved and betrayed. The officer advised them to monitor for further snowman activity. The boys agreed and hugged each other dramatically. 38. A group of cousins home alone created a 911 for Santa hotline and prank called themselves 17 times. When the dispatcher answered again, she asked if they were testing her patience. The kids admitted they were checking Santa's availability. The dispatcher sighed and reminded them Santa was extremely busy. The kids apologized and promised to stop calling. She made a note to monitor future holiday activity in that neighborhood. The cousins dismantled their hotline and declared the operation retired. 39. A boy home alone microwaved a candy cane to turn it into syrup, but it exploded into a peppermint blast. The room filled with red mist and sticky sugar flakes. The boy called 911 and reported a candy-related disaster. The dispatcher asked if flames were visible, which made the boy insist only chaos was visible. Firefighters arrived and cleaned the microwave area. One firefighter joked this was the sweetest explosion he had responded to. The boy promised not to experiment with candy again. 40. A girl home alone locked the last cookie in a small safe to protect it from her cousins. When she forgot the combination, everyone panicked. They called 911 requesting a baked goods extraction. The dispatcher asked if the cookie was important, which made the kids shout it was the final one. An officer arrived and picked the lock. The cookie was rescued with cheers. The officer said this was a high-priority snack recovery. The kids shared the cookie as a peace offering. 41. A group of cousins home alone decided to stage a Yule log heist by rolling the decorative log into the neighbor's yard. The neighbor saw it moving and called 911 about a rogue log. The kids panicked and also called 911 to confess before being caught. The dispatcher asked which side she should prioritize, which made the kids beg for leniency. An officer arrived and returned the log to its rightful home. The kids apologized and promised no more lumber-based missions. The neighbor accepted peace cookies in the spirit of the season. 42. A boy home alone attempted to play Santa by sliding down the laundry chute. He wedged himself halfway and screamed for help, which made his cousin cry. They called 911 and explained Santa had malfunctioned. The dispatcher asked how stuck he was, which made the cousin yell extremely. Firefighters arrived and carefully lifted him out. One firefighter said the chute was not approved for holiday travel. The boy promised to use doors like everyone else. The firefighters reminded him Santa had professional training that kids should not attempt. 43. A girl home alone tried recharging a fake Rudolph nose with a phone charger. The nose lit up and began playing a distant-sounding Mariah Carey melody that echoed through the hallway. The kids panicked and called 911 to report an out-of-control decoration. The dispatcher asked if the music was hostile, which made the kids scream maybe. Firefighters arrived and unplugged the nose quickly. One firefighter said Rudolph had entered concert mode. The kids promised to avoid combining electronics with holiday props again. 44. A group of kids home alone panicked when the family dog ate the naughty list they had carefully written. They put the dog on trial using a laundry basket as a courtroom and a squirrel outside the window as the accidental witness. They called 911 to request legal reinforcement. The dispatcher asked if the defendant understood the charges, which made the kids answer no, but he looked guilty. An officer arrived and declared the case dismissed. The dog celebrated with treats, and the kids started rewriting the list carefully. 45. A girl home alone shook a snow globe too hard, and the glitter got sucked into the vent. Soon, glitter drifted through the living room like a holiday rave. The kids called 911 and claimed the house was producing sparkles. The dispatcher asked if the sparkles were harmful, which made the kids insist they were festive but alarming. Firefighters arrived and turned off the heater. One firefighter laughed and said it was the most glamorous emergency he had seen. The kids kept a small jar of glitter as evidence. 46. A group of cousins home alone built a Santa detection system using motion sensors and jingle bells. The system triggered 42 times in 10 minutes, which convinced them Santa was approaching at high speed. They called 911 and reported that Santa was circling the property. The dispatcher asked if they could visually confirm him, which made the kids admit the sensors might be overly sensitive. Officers arrived and discovered the family cat had set off every alert. The kids apologized and retired the detection system. 47. A girl home alone hired a snowman as a butler during playtime and assigned him chores. After 10 minutes, he toppled over and she declared he had quit. Her cousins called 911 to report a labor dispute. The dispatcher asked if the butler was willing to renegotiate, which made the kids say he had melted too much to participate. An officer arrived and confirmed he was no longer structurally sound. The kids thanked the officer for mediating the world's shortest employment contract. 48. A boy home alone called 911 claiming Santa left a coal-powered phone under the tree. He insisted the phone needed a shovel, not a charger. The dispatcher asked if the phone had smoke, which made the boy say it smelled like old campfires. An officer arrived and discovered it was a novelty toy with a scent feature. The officer explained the joke. The boy laughed and admitted he took the coal concept literally. The officer told him it was an understandable holiday misunderstanding. 49. A group of kids home alone tried roasting chestnuts using a hair straightener. The chestnuts exploded and launched across the room like festive grenades. They screamed and called 911, reporting a chestnut attack. The dispatcher asked if anyone was injured, which made the kids say only scared. Firefighters arrived and inspected the scene. One firefighter said chestnuts were not meant for combat. The kids promised never to use beauty tools for cooking again. Everyone agreed this was the most dramatic holiday snack failure of the day. So these are the unbelievable and absolutely ridiculous 911 calls kids made while home alone during the holidays. If any of these made you laugh, shake your head, or say "no way" out loud, then you are officially part of the Brain Fumble Chaos Squad. Make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's list gets even wilder, and you do not want to miss it. Now tell us in the comments which number shocked you the most and what would you have done in that situation. We dare you to pick just one.